Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
So excited to be here with you this morning, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. One thing I want to say is, I appreciate Linda. She's like, we tried to get Dr. Buck not to sit front and center because we know how nervous that makes the teacher when the principal's right there. So I appreciate that. But I said, no, he's used to hearing me talk, But excited to be here with you, and thank you for the invitation. I'm getting to talk about a topic that is super passionate with me. The workforce, all of our spaces, span so many generations now, and it's truly a key. When I work with people on coaching, a lot of their issues are friction with team members who are in different generational spaces. So very important topic, and it transcends all of the areas that I work. Even within the district, much of our work is how do we affirm differences and uniqueness with teachers who may be in a completely different generation than many of our parents and students that they're seeing today, and helping them to navigate that through our dignity work. Yeah, let me turn the clicker on. All right. So first thing I like to say with doing this topic, I love talking about generational differences, but they always seem to kind of take a moment where we start to label the generations. So I want to give for our opening frame that we just take in our mind, we are not going to label generations. We do want to understand why people work the way that they do, some of the values that they hold, how they communicate, what they see as accountability. And our big question is, how do we lead across generational differences without turning those differences into stereotypes? And it skates a very thin line. So we're going to make sure that we talk about that today. I want you to look at this. How many people can relate to this? This is a workplace. One person, my friend on the end, says, why didn't they just call me? Somebody here says, why are we having a meeting that could have been an email? Somebody's saying, why is this email so formal? And then somebody's like, why did they reply with just K? And this is what many of you may see is people who, when we talk about how we communicate, some people don't respond to emails. And I'm from I'll send a long formal email and I'm like, does anybody read the email? Because nobody's responded. And they're like, oh, I got the email. But there's typically a generational difference. And so we have to navigate that, and it's so important to not label it as, oh, they are not serious about the work. So our time today, we are going to have lots of experience practicing with some of these things. You should have guided notes on your table that'll move you through the presentation with me. We are going to laugh a little. We're going to look at some generational patterns. We're going to practice translating tension into clearer expectations, because typically when people say, oh, there's a difference, my team doesn't want to do what they need to do, I'm trying to get people on board, but they just aren't able to get in our philosophy, that's a leadership tension, and it just develops into some friction. So we'll talk about how to translate that into expectations that are clear. And then we're going to practice with a tool that you can use with your team. You can make sure that you use it with customers. It can be applied to community scenarios. So I hope that you will find that good. And by the end, hopefully you will leave with one expectation that you can make visible this week regarding a generational difference. So first I want to just level set with us. So when we think about generational tension, that is the friction that shows up when people are shaped by different experiences, norms, technologies, and expectations, and they interpret the same workplace moment differently. So if you hear me reference generational tension, that is the definition I'm using for today. People are shaped by different experiences, norms, technologies, and expectations in the same workplace, but they all come across differently. So it shows up in all types of spaces. And so these are just some of them I've seen. When we think about generational tension, it can be a manager trying to lead a younger employee. It could be a business owner trying to retain good talent, a nonprofit leader managing staff and volunteers, a financial institution that serves clients across age groups. It could be a construction team coordinating field and office communication. It could be a church or community organization that's trying to engage multiple generations. No matter what the organization, you have a need that probably is spanning multiple generations, and that question comes up is like, how do we get this target group on board, or this group that maybe is working with us, how do we get them engaged with the work? So what I see from my lens, so when I'm doing coaching work, and I tell people I live like a dual life, like one part of my life is super student services driven. I'm passionate about student services. I'm a longtime educator, so it is definitely in my heart. The other part of my life, like on weekends and evenings, I'm typically doing like executive coaching with teams and around these kind of issues. So in my coaching work, I'm often supporting leaders who are navigating communication breakdowns. Typically it comes across there's a generational difference. It's usually anchored in unclear expectations and team misalignment. In my role as Assistant Superintendent at LSR 7 with our dignity and equity work, we're really trying to help our staff members to relate to students and families that are probably in a different generation than them. They can span generations, and they're really trying to navigate like, how do we calibrate between values, communication styles, and life experiences that are different from my own. And so some of these questions, how do we communicate across differences? How do we build trust with people who don't work as we do? How do we hold standards without dismissing different needs? How do we serve customers, clients, students, families, et cetera, across generations? So it's not just an internal workforce issue, which a lot of times businesses and leaders will think like this is just something that they are navigating through. Nope, it's the whole world. And so it really becomes a leadership service and community trust issue. So I know even within my own family, like I navigate generational differences because they're always on their phones. They're always on their phones. My grandfather's like, why can't you all sit here and just talk to me? And so my cousins are like, well, we are talking to you, but they're looking at their phones. He's like, no, you're not talking to me. You're looking at your phone. You're typing whoever you're typing. And I'm kind of like in the middle, like, yeah, I can be on the phone. I can also talk to you. So even within a family dynamic, generational differences start to surface. So generational identity, as we think about it, is just one layer of experience, and it's often connected to age and shared cultural moments. And so I like this little wheel because it kind of has all of our different identity differences. And so if you look at the age space there, you see that connected to that is our work background, our communication style, how we collaborate, how we make decisions, how we respond, how we say feedback. All of those things are rooted in that part of our identity. So really quick, just gonna touch on it. I have learned through these presentations, I'm not gonna ask you to raise your hand if you're a part of the group. You can share with your table if you feel comfortable. So we have baby boomers who are still in the workforce, okay? Pushing through strong. Baby boomers, they may value stability, respect, professionalism, institutional knowledge. When we think about communication styles, they want the face-to-face. They want the formal meeting. Give me the written follow-up. And so they may misread informality as disrespect. They may think rapid change is dismissal of experience. They may see when somebody's asking for more flexibility that person's not committed, okay? So with baby boomers, we really want to honor the history before we ask people to move forward. Then we have Generation X. Generation X may value autonomy, efficiency, flexibility, practicality. They like direct communication, like come talk to me. Give me an email if you need it, just to be clear. We don't want to have a lot of meetings. Give us practical updates that we can do something with. When they get a lot of check-ins, they start to say, oh, I feel like this person is micromanaging me. Too much process is inefficient. For them, we want to really clarify the outcome and then allow for autonomy. Go forth and do great work. Here's the parameters. Then we also have millennials that are in the space. They value purpose, growth, feedback, inclusion, clarity. They like email, they like chats, they like collaborative platforms. You have to give them a lot of, why are we doing this? They may misread lack of feedback as a lack of investment in them. They'll say, this workplace does not value me. Limited context is poor communication. And they may think because I said so is something that's dismissive. So for them, we really need to connect the work to the why, the outcome, and the growth opportunity. And last but not least, we have Gen Z. How many people have somebody that you know in your life that's Gen Z? Okay. Gen Z, they want flexibility, they want inclusion, they want mental health, they want authenticity. These are our people who are digital first communicators. So send me a text message, don't come talk to me. Talk to me is a last resort. Short messages, so you have to learn how to just say K. Visual learners, they want quick access to information and frequent clarity. They may think silence is disapproval, formality as distance. They may think limited flexibility is you don't trust them. So with Gen Z, we have to be clear, we have to be transparent, we have to be very specific about expectations. And so if you have a teenager that you're working with, you know you have to be super clear. So I work with a lot of parents who are like, I've told them the same thing, this, and this. And I'm like, you probably are gonna have to tell them every day in that same format. So you shouldn't have anybody who is in the next generation in your workforce. Okay. Thank you for the people who are with me. All right, so you can be in the same workplace. Somebody is like, hey, print the agenda. One person at the table is like, where's the QR code? Somebody says, just send me the feedback by text. Somebody says, put it in an email, we don't need to meet. Somebody is just gonna reply with a thumbs up emoji that is sometimes gonna be causing some HR crisis. And that is a very real situation. A lot of times when I'm working with people, they're like, somebody sent this and they sent an emoji and it landed them in HR because somebody else interpreted it as inappropriate. They're like, that's not what I meant. Those are communication differences that we have to navigate, especially when we have different generations. So I always say with like teenagers, you have to also explain to them like the same things that you may send to your friend, you can't do that when you go to work. So at your table, really quickly, I want you to think of a time when someone from a different generation may have interpreted your communication differently than you intended. Somebody who you work with in a space that's from a different generation, potentially you think they're in a different generation, that may have interpreted something that you communicated differently than you had intended. Take a few moments at your table and share out. about 20 more seconds. All right. As we come back together, I forgot to tell you, my signal to bring us all back is if you see me with my hand up like this, then if you will, just put your hand up. It doesn't mean that you have to come to an abrupt stop in the conversation, but it does mean to begin to close us, and we're gonna transition forward. So lots of great discussion. I was kind of hesitant to walk around because I didn't know if like the mic is gonna cut off if I get off the stage or not, but I definitely am gonna come around and check on you as we move forward. So communication preferences, we have all these different ways that we communicate: phone calls, verbal communication, meetings, written instructions. The most important thing to understand is that across every generation, it can be interpreted differently, right? So we're trying to like mix and match to find the best method that's gonna give us respect, urgency, trust, and professionalism. So generational friction is typically an expectation gap. So our expectations are misaligned. So a quick message may feel efficient to one person in your space and completely disrespectful for another. And so we have to learn how to navigate that. Wanting flexibility may feel like trust to somebody, and to somebody else, wanting to work from home, like, what are you doing? Why can't you come into the office and work? So it's that misalignment that often happens. So it's typically rooted in an expectation gap. And so when we have the expectation gap, I want us to lean into how do we translate? And so this is called the translation move. And so when generational tension shows up, oftentimes as leaders, what we want to do is correct the behavior, but we want to correct the behavior from our lens. So the better first move is to translate it to find out what is underneath it. And that typically happens with 3 questions. So what's the behavior? What do I see? What meaning did people assign to it? So is there a story or an assumption or an interpretation that maybe I'm missing that's becoming a blind spot? And then what expectation needs to be clarified? And so what is the standard? The standard that sometimes we assume other people know, most often not, they don't. So it's an exercise in making our standards and expectations clear. And so the tool I'm going to invite you to use today is tension to alignment. And I've done this work with teams where there have generational differences and there's tension. Sometimes it's not even a generation, it's just a team with tension. And it also works for that as well. And so there's 5 moves to it. Notice the behavior, check the interpretation, diagnose the gap. So is this performance? Is this preference? Is it expectations? Is it communication? Is it trust? Is it fairness? Clarify the standard. What expectation needs to be made clear? And then what's the agreement? What are we going to do differently moving forward? And so the most important part with this is I tell leaders is don't rush to solve the conflict before you understand the gap that their conflict is anchored into. Because we all act with our blinders on. Like we are going to step into a situation and whatever we're experiencing, we are experiencing through our lens. So we want to make sure that we can have kind of this out-of-body experience for a second to step into the other person before we can actually like come up with a resolve. So this will be our practice. And we have a couple of practice activities. We're going to get through 2. If we have time, there's a 3rd one. But I'll make sure that we keep us moving forward. So at your table, I want you just to think about these areas. Where do you see tension, generational tension show up the most? And I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand if you've seen it. Communication styles. Okay. Feedback. Flexibility. That's a big one. Like some generations took it really hard coming back to work after COVID. Technology, respect, and professionalism. What about accountability? What about expectations? Customer, client, family. Okay, they expect something completely different than what's there. What about change and innovation? Okay. Yep, all of those things are anchored that we start to see differences. So for your first practice, you have a scenario. A manager sends a detailed email update because they believe important information should be documented. A younger team member rarely responds to the full email, but quickly replies in Teams or text with short answers. The manager thinks they're not taking this seriously. The employee thinks, I answer quickly. Why are they frustrated with me? Okay? I want you at your table just to kind of use the attention to alignment process. It's on the back side on page 2. If you can't see this, kind of go through those steps with each other. Take about 3 minutes. And as a table, I want you to think about one sentence that the manager might say to clarify expectations without criticizing the employee's style. What might the manager say if you were in that shoe to the employee that will not criticize their style of communication? Take about 3 minutes at your table.
Not my favorite. For
All right, thank you for that. All right, what kind of gap did you all decide this was? Where's this issue, where's it anchored? Expectations, okay. Manager is expecting I'm gonna get a nice, full, complete response, right? Employees thinking, I did respond. I heard at a group over in here, in this area, somebody's like, yeah, when I have an inbox full of emails, like, I don't want to necessarily have time to sit and respond with another long email. Which is so true, right? So, as you think about it, what kind of expectation needs to be clarified in this situation? What kind of expectation needs to be clarified between manager and employee?
Is there a response required?
Okay, is there a response required?
What type of response do you want?
What type of response do I want, right? Okay,
Why do you want that response?
why do I want the response? Okay,
Do you want a quick response or a thorough response?
do I want a quick response or a thorough response?
One of my big questions would be, what do you find beneficial in like, what out of the email do you find beneficial and what don't you find beneficial? Clarifying question.
Clarifying questions. I know you send me 3 paragraphs, I send you 3 paragraphs back, we're gonna go paragraph battle all day. So true. So I've seen this issue before, not a performance issue, because sometimes the person is an excellent employee or team member. It may have been a communication expectation gap, which, as you all have done, like, it requires some processing. The manager probably is saying, I'm thinking I'm gonna get the response back that I would want from myself. Never really giving themselves time to actually think about, like, have I given the clear expectations of what I want back from my team members when I'm sending these messages? And do I even need a response back to it? And does it have to be 3 paragraphs? So you could say, I appreciate how quickly you respond. Let's clarify which updates can stay in Teams and which ones need to be handled by email so we both have what we need. So the takeaway in this one is, when communication norms, which happens a lot, probably about 80% of the situations that I see where there's tension, when those norms are invisible, people will tend to judge each other's style instead of aligning expectations. Because to do this, it requires us to pause, take some time to actually clear and have clarity in the space. And a lot of times, leaders are on the go, trying to make wonderful things happen. Not bad intentions on the part of any person. Okay, let's jump into practice 2. For this one, a team member asks for more flexibility in their schedule. Another employee says, I don't think it's fair. Some of us have been here for years. We've never had the opportunity to have flexibility. We show up every day. So this could be in a business, a nonprofit, hotel, church. I'm sure everybody has had somebody who's asked for some flexibility in work. I want you to use the same process at your table and think about those same things. Where are we missing? Where's the gap? What needs to be consistent? And think about how you might communicate on this issue to that employee that wants this flexibility in schedule and work environment. Okay, take 3 minutes with your table.
As long as everybody was getting their work done and supreme work, we can have a good.
Well, and sometimes you're more, like for me, I'm more productive at home than I am at work. Because at work, you get 20 people come around you, right? And they're with productivity. So
So 2 days a week I can work from home. Our warehouse workers can't. They don't have the option. So there is always going to be, that is not fair. They're right. They don't have the opportunity to
So our decision as an organization was for everybody to be in the office because you're supporting them. And that's what was so important is we're there to support them. Our IT department always wanted us to be able to work at home while most of our work is with residents. We have to be on campus to work with them because so many of them don't really use smartphones. They're getting developed. They have
Paid right to do. I shouldn't be that. You should go to the other people and just like that. You have retail everybody here is an employee.
You should send us a text when you want us to.
I love it. So true. All right. As your table thought about this, where did you see the gap? Is this a flexibility issue? Is this a fairness issue? Is it accountability? Is it role clarity? Where did you land? All of the above?
I'll send you an email.
We also landed in communication, like it's about setting clear expectations of what that flexibility is, but then communicating that.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody understands the boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think part of it too is ask them. You've been here for so many years, you've never asked for any type of different schedule. So is there something that maybe we could work out and find out first and then see how it impacts the organization,
Mhm.
team members?
Okay.
Our table talked about you don't really know what the team member needs the flexibility for. It could be a very personal issue and something that other team members don't need to know about.
Right? Anything else? Does everything need to be consistent?
It needs to be consistent to the point where it's fair to be honest, give to everyone. Then others may see the favoritism.
Right, because you may have a role where like there's just no way you can be home and do this, right? And be in the same organization with somebody who very well can be at home and be focused and on task with their work. School districts see this a lot. We see it like, especially after COVID, like, summer schedules is a big thing in every school district, like summer hours. I'm so appreciative to Dr. Buck, not just because he's here, but I've been other places and it was like, well, you get to choose if you want to work in the summer from home. And then somebody is like, well, no, it's not fair. Well, what are we doing when we're at home in the summer? Somebody's like, oh, I'm working, but I'm flying to Alaska. So, I appreciate like when I came to LSR 7, it was very much so like, this is the expectations. If you're gonna be working from home on Fridays in the summer, these are the Fridays. This is the expectation on how you need to be available, what we expect you to do. And it just kept everything clean for everybody. And so you are in those situations where somebody can have flexibility in their role, and then there's another role where that flexibility can't be there. And so you have to think about, where can we be flexible? Did anybody have any language that they would communicate in this situation? Did anybody get to that part? Okay, we got to unraveling the issues. So I'm going to give you, in this situation, flexible methods could include the schedule, the location, maybe the work rhythm, maybe the communication channel, some clear standards that probably need to be thought through. What's going to be the quality? Is the quality of the work going to maintain if you're working from home? Whew. The air just came on as soon as we talked about quality. What are the deadlines? How responsive do you need to be? Should I be able to reach you if there's an emergency if you're working from home? Or is it going to take 4 hours for you to get back with me? Follow through. If we're doing customer service and our clients need you, are you going to be available doing the work from home? Or are you going to be distracted on television? Depending on the age of the person. You know, a lot of our teenagers, like, I'm always amazed, like, how do you maintain work and you're watching Netflix and listening to YouTube at the same time? So, something you might say is, I hear the concern about fairness. Let's separate flexibility from accountability, because this is one of those ones where there's multiple issues that are at play. The arrangement may look different depending on the role, but the expectations for communication, availability, service, and results needs to be clear for everyone. And then the takeaway for this one is, when flexibility is not connected to clear standards, people experience it as being unfair and inconsistent, whether they say it to you or not. When they see one thing happening and it's not made clear to everyone, they walk away with, there's some different standards for different people in our company and on our team. So we want to make sure flexibility can happen in some spaces and in most spaces, but it has to be clear standards that are given to it. All right, and I think we have a few moments we might be able to get through this one. We'll just go real quick. So this is a customer, client, student, family who identifies in the Gen Z category may expect quick digital communication, easy access to information, and updates through text, chat, or message me on an online platform, right? Somebody from the baby boomer generation, they want a phone call, they want you to establish a personal relationship, they want to be professional, and they want to have time to dialogue around things before making a decision. And the organization says we can't communicate 10 different ways, but the people being served say, I don't understand what I need. They don't understand what I need. I'm asking for this and I'm a client. So if you are the person at the head of this organization, you have two clients from different generations or team members from different generations, what are some of the aspects that you might work through to communicate that awareness without losing consistency? Take 3 minutes for this one, and then we will come back, and we are in the downslope.
newer relationships with different generations and accommodate that.
I think I'm really short videos.
Part of it's your computer. Because if you switch over, you're emailing someone else and you want to show answers, you're switching around different forms of communication. Now you don't have a chain of response. You have to be turned into.
Yeah, to your point, it's like it needs to be documented. Documented is not,
All right. Was there any tables that came up with a good way of how they would communicate with generational awareness that's at play in this situation, but also communicating consistency?
Terrell's got a good one.
Okay.
With his business.
So my son is, he just turned 30. He runs our downtown location, and he's like, yeah, when we advertise, we got TikTok, and I was like, I'm not on TikTok. I think, and so I was like, I think we need to do more traditional advertising. And so last week he called me. He said, hey, jump on our TikTok. So I jumped on TikTok, and they put something out there, and the Argentina national soccer team, their DJ saw it, and their DJ came to the space, and they took a picture with the DJ. Well, the Argentina national DJ had like 16 million followers, and that one picture in one day, it had like 50-something thousand views.
Wow.
And he's like, see, I told you. And I'm like, that's out flyers.
That is a great example of using a generational difference as a strength in your organization. Okay. Anybody else have anything else that kind of their table talked about that was important for this one?
3 or 4 years ago, we had some of our stakeholders, some of the parents saying we have too many apps for all the sports team fans, clubs, all that stuff. So we got about 100 of them together. They came up with a recommendation, and now we have tried to get it down to one app. Now, our older generation of parents and guardians are happy about that. Our younger ones are not, and our younger coaches are not, because they want to customize and do different things to make it fit their unique space. So that's what we see. It's really hard to please. If you have stakeholders that are over many generations, consumers, it's hard to please them all with one strategy.
Right. And somebody probably still wants the athletics calendar to come home.
Right.
And printed form, like Terrell. All right, anybody else? Okay, well, in this, remember our person, just for generational differences, a Gen Z person may be saying, is this quick, clear, transparent, easy to access? A millennial may say, is this purposeful, responsive, and clear? Generation X might be saying, is this efficient and practical and respectful of the time? A baby boomer might be like, is this really building trust or respect of my experience? And so as you think about bridge language you might use if this situation ever surfaces, we may not be able to communicate every message in every possible way, but we can be clear about what people can expect from us, where they can find the information, and how we will follow up. Because a lot of times, organizations will get sucked into the vortex over debating, do we print flyers, do we go to TikTok? And they lose an enormous amount of time and consumers over the debate, when really the standard can be clear. It can actually be both. We just have to think about how we divide our time, but where can they always find the message, and what is that gonna look like, and what are we gonna always promise to deliver to them by way of communication? So the takeaway here is generational fluency, which is what this is, helps organizations to serve people better without turning every preference into a different process. Because the tool and the process and the time and the manpower to divide into 10 different preferences will drain your organization, and you're gonna lose people while you're in that process. So generational fluency, remember, it serves people better without turning every preference into a separate process. All right, so as we wrap up, I want you just to think about yourself as a leader of your business organization. What's one expectation that you might need to make clear in the upcoming week, especially if you have multiple generations that you're serving or team members who probably land in that spectrum? What's maybe one thing that they're assuming that you actually just need to make clear for them? And typically, if you think about where you experience the most tension or friction, that's probably the good place to start for this expectation. So I just want to leave you with that. The reflection, and it's on the last page. Where are people guessing because I've not made my expectation clear? So in closing, remember, same workplace, but you have people who have different playbooks. So the goal is not to make every generation work, communicate, or lead the same way. The goal is to build enough clarity that people don't have to guess what they can expect, that they understand, respect, accountability, flexibility, professionalism, trust, all of those factors that matter in the workplace. And I am appreciative of the time. We are doing fantastic work with dignity and belonging, and so I'm always happy to talk about how we bridge differences and affirm those uniqueness and differences of our families and students, but also passionate about the work because you are serving people or working with people in all of these different generations. And so make sure that you maximize the time, make sure that you step out of your lens to see it from the perspective of others when there may be tension. And I'm appreciative of the invite and the time that I could be with you this morning. So thank you.